Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday, June 7th, North Middlesex Council meeting. Call this meeting to order. We will begin with quarter revision. Our members for the quarter revision for this issue is Deputy Mayor Hodgins, Councillor Daigle, and myself. All right, our first item is at 5:45 is for the Jenison Drain Branch A and B. Are you coming up forward?
Mayor and members of council, in front of you is a report for the quarter revision for the Jenison Drain branches A and B. The recommendation states that the quarter revision confirm the assessment schedules are detailed in RDOB and Engineering Incorporating report dated April 20th, 2023 for the Jenison Drain branch A and B, and that a motion be made to accept the assessments. However, I want to note that we have received an appeal.
Good evening. I'm Josh Warner of RDOB and Engineering. I authored the Jenison Drain report. As such, I'll give a brief overview of kind of how the appealed property has been assessed, and then make myself available for any questions. So the lands with roll number 60-032 are assessed a benefit and a special benefit assessment. The special benefit assessment accounts for the increased cost to upsize the tile size beyond the grantable standard for branch A only. A benefit assessment is assessed when land, roads, buildings, utilities, or other structures are increased in value or more easily maintained as a result of the project. The construction of branch A and B will reduce the erosion on the property by outletting upstream surface water to sufficient outlet, or will not impede the farming operation or farming access on the property. The benefit assessment percentage that was utilized for both drains in this report is 50%. This is typical in the majority of drainage projects that we complete. This benefit assessment has been split with 80% assessed to the property with roll number 60-032, as they receive the entire benefit from the surface water not flowing through their property. The resulting proportions come to an assessment of $8,650 as a benefit assessment for branch A and $8,741 benefit assessment for branch B. The percentages used are not calculated numbers. They are based on my experience on similar projects and is what I believe to be fair based on the value received from both projects. I'm now available for any questions or comments from the court or landowners.
At this time, is there a landowner that would like to speak on this? We do have a letter. You'd like to come forward, please, sir?
Good evening, Steve Jenison. Thank you for hearing me tonight. I believe you've got a copy of the thing here. Would you like me to read it, or?
No, I think as everybody on the court's got a copy. Okay. Yeah, we're good. Is anything you'd like to add to that, the letter you wrote?
Yeah, actually on B, on the branch B side, I'd like to add, because I'm the furthest west farm, collecting the 4 other farms, water coming down through. I've got absolutely no water going into this drain. They're just putting a culvert or a drain underneath the existing laneway. And I believe it's 11 meters. And to be assessed at very close to $5,000, which was way over everybody else's assessment on that drain, just is, to me, way overpriced for just a culvert coming across my drain, saving my and all this first for saving my laneway, so to get to the back. So I just feel I'm being hit harder because I'm the west farm and the other 4 farms water coming down through. I just feel I'm being overassessed quite a bit more than everybody else on that. So just hoping we can come to a resolution with that.
Thank you. Questions from members of the court? Questions? I think I would like to hear from Mr. Josh, if you could come up and speak to that, because I do get the concern. I understand your concern. I just would like to hear the other side of this. See what.
Yeah, so through the chair, so branch B, the lands are only assessed for a benefit assessment. So I'm aware that there won't be any water draining through it, but they are assessed similar to branch A at a 40% benefit assessment to being able to have that water captured and outletted downstream through a culvert that will not impede their farm access. So again, they've been assessed at a 40% rate for both branch A and branch B.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Daigle?
It's my understanding that benefit is there because of the physical properties that are being built. The outlet is just for the drainage of the land.
Through the chair, that is correct. The benefit is for an increased value to the property, and outlet assessment is based on the proportion of the land that you have draining through the works.
Okay. Other questions? No other questions. What is the court's wish? Can you use your microphone, please?
Sorry, you're asking for a motion to
I'm
approve
wondering what
the
the
assessment
court's.
value? And if so, I will make that motion.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll read the motion that the Court of Revision confirm the assessment schedule as detailed in RDOB and Engineering Inc.'s report dated April 20th, 2023 for the Jenison Drain Branch A and B, and that motion be made to accept the assessment.
Okay. I make that motion.
Seconded. No other discussion? In favor? Carried. It is. It is carried. We do have one more, and that is for the Stebbins Drain Branch C and Pasco Branch. And we will have Deputy Mayor Hodgins, Councillor Keogh, and myself serving on this court.
Mayor and members of council, in front of you is a report for the Court of Revision for the Stebbins Drain Branch C and the Pasco Branch. And the recommendation states that the Court of Revision confirm the assessment schedules as detailed in the RDOB and Engineering Incorporated report dated April 20th, 2023 for the Stebbins Drain Branch C and the Pasco Branch, and that a motion be made to accept the assessment.
Questions from council or from the committee? No questions on this one? We have a motion in front of us. Once again, I'll read it. That's Court of Revision confirm the assessment schedule as detailed in RDOB and Engineering Inc.'s report dated April 20th, 2023 for the Stebbins Drain Branch C and Pasco Branch, and that a motion to accept the assessments. Moved by Councillor Keogh, seconded by Deputy Hodgins. In favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, John. I need a motion to go out of Court of Revision and to change to regular meeting. Councillor Keogh, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Minutes of previous meetings. Any business arising, errors or omissions? Seeing none. Motion to accept the minutes. Councillor Nerda, Councillor Daigle, all in favor? Carried. Now I need a motion to go out of regular meeting and into public meeting, including Committee of Adjustment. Councillor Cornelison. Councillor Keogh, all in favor? Carried. Our first item is for 6 o'clock. And it's notice of public meeting to consider application B08-2023 located at 29462 Coldstream Road. And do we have the applicant here for this? If you want to come up, sir, to the center.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Get our maps all queued up. Perfect. The purpose of the application is to do a severance application to permit a lot creation to dispose of a resident surplus to a farming operation. And this application in particular is actually called a reverse surplus farm dwelling, whereby the owners are retaining the dwelling and severing the agricultural farmland to be consolidated with a farming operation, in this case, which is West Corner Farms Limited, who meet the eligibility criteria, meaning that they own multiple farms with multiple dwellings. The lands to be severed contains an agricultural outbuildings to be removed as identified by the applicant, and agricultural lands and crop production. And the lands to be severed has an existing access from Coldstream Road. The lands to be retained contains a single detached dwelling, an accessory building, and a grain silo, and are serviced by a municipal water connection and a private septic system. The lands to be retained has an existing access from Coldstream Road. The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and the municipality's official plan generally permit lot creation in agricultural areas to dispose of a dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation, subject to evaluation criteria. Staff are satisfied that farm consolidation will be achieved and that the residents may be deemed surplus to the needs of the farming operation, West Corner Farms Limited. The applicants have provided supplementary information that demonstrates ownership of a number of farm holdings in the surrounding area, a separate principal residence, and impact data has indicated that the existing dwelling was constructed approximately in the 1890s. The North Middlesex official plan indicates that the severed land, being the residential dwelling lot, should generally only be as large as necessary to accommodate on-site water and sanitary disposal services, and should be generally a maximum of 1 hectare or 2 acres in size. Staff note that the area of the proposed retained lands, being the residential dwelling lot, is 0.73 hectares or 1.8 acres, remaining consistent with the maximum size of 2.5 acres. And the minimum lot size requirement being 0.4 hectares or 1 acre of the AG1 zone. And staff are satisfied that the lot is an appropriate size for the use and for the servicing. Notice of the application has been circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. Enbridge Gas did note service lines in the area which may or may not be impacted. AuSable Bayfield Conservation Authority noted that the regulated portion of the lands are going to remain on the severed land, so no concerns in regards to fragmenting of the hazard lands. Hydro One has no concerns or comments at this time. North Middlesex Public Works Department did note that there is water that runs along Coldstream Road, and that the owner shall provide confirmation that the water service is wholly contained to the house parcel. In terms of roads, both the severed and retained have an existing access off of Coldstream. In terms of drainage, a drainage reassessment will be required, and there are no municipal sanitary implications as it is on private septic. In addition to the comments, the hydro service will also need to be contained to the property. From the North Middlesex Chief Building Official, the following comments were received. A condition to ensure that the septic system remains on the retained parcel, and similarly, any electrical service to the severed farm parcel be removed if the buildings are to remain. If the buildings are to be removed, which the applicant has indicated on their application, those are the farm buildings, that they be confirmed to be removed, including the debris and broken concrete. At the time of writing the subject report, no comments were received from the public. So it is recommended that the application be granted subject to the conditions which council will have before them. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. First, I want to apologize. We did start a couple of minutes early. Is there any comments that you applicant would like to add?
Thank you.
Just turn your microphone on, please, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I apologize. I'm glad to hear that we started early inadvertently because I was going to apologize for being late. I thought we were starting at 6. Thank you for the record. My name's Paul Hendricks. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, who the principal of the applicant is right next to me here, Joyce Mashley. And I can advise council that I also spoke to the owner of the property, just to confirm a few things that had been contained within conditions, not to suggest that we don't apply the conditions, but just to give the council some peace of mind, I can confirm that the owner has already confirmed to me that hydro and water are both contained, the hookups are contained within his property as set out in the application. Doris, was there anything you wanted to add?
No.
Okay, then that's all of our submissions.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Is there any comments from the public at this time on this application? Seeing none. Questions from council? Councilor Canellis?
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Stephanie, item 10, the habitability of the single detached dwelling be confirmed to the satisfaction of chief building official. I've noticed that this is a relatively new condition on these severances. Is this something that came up in the last year in planning, or where did this come from?
Through the mayor to the councillor, the habitability of the dwelling, it has to be habitable in order to qualify. So that's just been an eligibility criteria that has been enforced in our conditions.
Not for a long time, though. I mean, this is relatively new. It certainly wasn't a few years ago.
It's a condition that's okay in there, and it's meeting it's reinforcing the eligibility criteria.
Very well.
Okay. Any other questions? No other questions? We have a recommendation in front of us.
I apologize.
I'm sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Mr. Councillor, just to address your question, I can advise council that in the last 4 severances that I've been involved with, we have had those in there, and generally I haven't asked to remove them, but each time I talk to the chief building official, Arnie Marsman, and who works for North Middlesex as well as Middlesex Center, he has advised that he doesn't see these as necessary if the house is occupied. And I can advise council that the house is currently occupied by the owners of the property. So if council was content to remove it, it's one less condition that I have to satisfy. And I do think it's unnecessary in this case, but I'll defer to council.
Councillor Daigle.
I do recall though in the past where we've had applications come forward where there was maybe 3 walls left of a structure. And that's why I think that's in, because if it's not a full house, it doesn't qualify.
Right. Okay. You have a follow-up, Councillor Canelson, or are you willing to let that condition stand?
Question of curiosity, because you know, over the years we've done many of these, but this is a relatively new condition that's come up in the last couple of years. Perhaps with the new building inspector that we're having now, I don't know. But I just wanted to have clarification on why it's conditioned now when historically it has not been.
I think Councillor Daigle did touch on it, and it may not have been here, but it was touched on it. Maybe there was a house that was not habitable that was passed somewhere. So we do have any other questions from council? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation in front of us. Councillor Keogh and Councillor Daigle, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, council.
Our next item is notice of public meeting to consider application B9 2023 located at 21 West Street. And do we have the applicant here for that? Oh, they're calling in? Right. Are we waiting? Can you hear us?
Hello?
Yes, Bob, can you hear us all right?
I can. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Bob. I'm just setting you back to the attendee room. We're going to let someone else in at the moment.
Okay.
We're waiting for, it is Bob. Okay, we'll put him back. Okay, Bob, we're letting you back in as a panelist, so you can proceed. Thank you.
All right, we'll try this again. Bob, are you there now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you, Brian.
We'll try this again. All right, Stephanie, if
Okay.
you'd like to begin.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to provide council with a recommendation regarding a proposal to create one new residential lot along West Street from a property known municipally as 21 West Street within the Hamlet settlement area of Carlisle. The lands proposed to be severed are currently vacant of any buildings or structures, do not contain a municipal water connection or a private sanitary system, and do not have an existing access off of West Street. The retained lands contain a greenhouse, shed, and pergola that are to be removed, do not contain a municipal water connection or a private sanitary system, and do not have an existing access off of West Street at this point in time. The subject lands are located, as mentioned, within the settlement area of Carlisle, which is serviced by municipal water and privately owned septic systems. The county official plan permits residential infilling within hamlet areas subject to appropriate size and servicing. Staff are of the opinion that the proposal is considered to be in conformity with the county official plan as well as the North Middlesex official plan, as the applicant has provided a draft survey as well as a servicing concept plan, which is up on the screen before council and the public, which demonstrates a potential building lot area as well as a septic system on the screen, which demonstrates that the proposed infill lot will be compatible with the lot area, frontage, and density patterns of the surrounding area, and appears to be large enough to accommodate the private septic system. And verification of the septic system plan will be completed by the chief building official. The lands to be severed, as well as the lands to be retained, meet the minimum lot area of 1,000 square meters and a lot frontage of 25 meters criteria within the existing zone category of the Hamlet Residential HR zone. So overall, staff are of the opinion that the proposal does meet the policy tests for a residential lot creation. Notice of the application has been circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. Enbridge Gas did note services within the area. Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority did note that a portion of the property is regulated, and any work to be completed, including the septic system, would require a permit from them in order to complete the works. Hydro One had no comments or concerns at the time. North Middlesex Public Works Department did require a development agreement to be completed as part of a condition. Did note that any entrance requirements would be required again through that development agreement. It is also noted that there's an existing water main on West Street, and the installation for separate services will need to be completed again as part of the development agreement. And that would cover, I guess the development agreement would cover roads, stormwater, water, essentially, and stormwater. And the chief building official would like confirmation that the proposed lots are large enough to accommodate, again, the septic system. And he did subsequently have a look at the plan and generally had no concerns with the proposed servicing plan. And at the time of writing the subject report, no comments from the public were received. So it is recommended that the application be granted, subject to the conditions which council will have before them. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. At this time, the applicant, Bob, would you have anything you'd like to add?
I would just like to say that North Middlesex was an excellent place to live, and we enjoyed our years that we lived in Carlisle. And I thought this would be a good fit for Carlisle because West Street is underutilized, services really only 2 homes. With the roads being of hard surfaces now, the drainage is all in place, things like that. There are no issues to add another property on a street. And again, these lots will be like 99 feet wide by 165. The closest neighbor is separated by an easement and then a 66-foot lot of trees that he owns. So it wouldn't cause an issue with that neighbor. And I just thought it would be a good fit for North Middlesex and the school systems, adding extra families if we can onto big lots. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Bob. At this time, any comments from the public on this issue, on this application? Seeing none, comments from council, questions or comments from council? Councillor Cornelison.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Stephanie, the Saulville Bayfield Conservation Authority has been indicated that we do have some areas of that particular lot that's under the regulation. I believe they made some reference to septic system there. Yet, how will that impact on the requirement for the development agreement with the municipality? So the Saulville Bayfield will have to confirm that this can proceed before the development agreement can be established, correct?
So through the mayor to the councillor, the private septic system is actually a separate condition from the development agreement. And so in working with the AuSable Bayfield and Ernie, our chief building official, they would both have to be in agreement with the servicing plan to clear that condition.
Correct. But if there can't be a septic system established with the restrictions from the Conservation Authority, then there can't be development, correct?
Should the lots not be able to be serviced, then the severance would not be able to be completed.
Thank you.
Councillor Keel.
Councillor Cornelison just asked a question I was going to ask.
Okay. Any other questions from council? No other questions? We have a recommendation in front of us. What's your wish? Moved by Councillor Daigle, seconded by Councillor Irwin. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Our next item is at notice of public meeting to consider application B10 2023 located at 177 Broadway Street. And Jerome, are you coming up? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. The applicant is proposing to create a residential infill lot by way of consent for the purpose of constructing a semi-detached dwelling where one unit of the semi-detached as well as an additional residential unit would be located on each parcel of the land for a total of 2 residential units per property as seen on the sketch provided on the screen in front of you. The lands proposed to be severed are currently vacant of any buildings or structures, do not contain a municipal water connection, and do not have an existing access off of Broadway Street. The retained lands contain a detached garage that is to be removed, are serviced by a municipal municipal sanitary connection, and do not contain a municipal water connection. And there is an existing access off of Broadway Street. The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and the municipality's official plan generally permit lot creation in settlement areas subject to servicing and compatibility. The North Middlesex official plan allows for up to 4 lots to be created by way of consent, so long as the subject land has frontage on a public road that is maintained on a year-round basis and is in an area serviced by municipal water and sanitary sewer. The subject lands front onto Broadway Street, which is a year-round maintained public road, and water and sanitary municipal infrastructure extend along the frontage of the property. Staff note that both the lands to be severed and the lands to be retained meet the minimum lot area of 230 square meters and a frontage of 9 meters criteria within the residential density 1 R1 zone. The applicant has submitted a sketch which demonstrates that the severed and retained lots are large enough to accommodate a building envelope which maintains the zoning regulations of the R1 zone. It is noted that the existing detached garage on the retained lands will need to be removed. That is a condition from a previous minor variance application as well as the severance application. And that's in order to maintain compliance with the zoning bylaw. Notice of the application has been circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. Enbridge Gas does have service lines within the area, which may or may not be impacted. AuSable Bayfield Conservation Authority notes that the subject lands are not regulated, so no comments. Hydro One has no comments or concerns at this time. North Middlesex Public Works Department is requiring a development agreement to be entered into to cover general public work matters, roads, water, sanitary. In terms of drainage and stormwater, a stormwater management report would be required and a drainage reassessment as well. The North Middlesex Chief Building Official notes that any buildings on the severed or retained parcels must be removed, that the lot grading plan be provided, that the driveway be contained to 1 lot, and that a new 911 address be assigned to the severed lot. And at the time of writing the subject report, no comments from the public have been received. So it is recommended that the application be granted subject to the conditions which council will have before them. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. At this time, applicant, have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'll just keep it short. Basically, I'm just trying to put some more houses and rental units out there. And that's really about it. So the plan is to have 2 semis. I have a photo of something that would be very similar to it. I can pass it on if you'd like to see it. And there'll be basically 2 units in each residential dwelling. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any comments from the public on this application? Seeing none, questions or comments from council? No questions or comments? We have a recommendation in front of us. Moved by Councillor Daigle, seconded by Councillor Nerda. In favor? Carried. Thank you. Our next one is notice of public meeting to consider application ZBA-6 2023 located at 31302 Fort Rose. And I believe our applicant is coming in online.
Hello?
Hello. Yes, can you hear us all right?
I can hear you all right. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Thank you. The purpose of the temporary use zoning bylaw amendment is to allow the owner to continue to live in the existing dwelling while a new dwelling is being constructed, whereas the bylaw would not permit 2 single detached dwellings on 1 property. The applicant is also required to enter into a temporary use agreement as part of this application, and the existing residence would be removed upon the expiration of the 3-year period in which the applicant has applied for. At the time of occupancy of the new single detached dwelling, or the expiration of the 3-year period, whichever occurs first. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2,400 square foot home to be located approximately 415 meters from the front lot line and approximately 250 meters from both the interior side lot lines. Staff are of the opinion that the proposed temporary use is in conformity with policy documents and do not have any concerns in regards to compatibility, servicing, access, parking, or traffic impacts as a result of temporarily allowing 2 dwellings on the subject lands. The new proposed dwelling appears to meet the zoning requirements of the general agricultural A1 zone, and staff are in a position to support the application and are satisfied that the existing dwelling will be demolished within the 3-year period of the bylaw or until occupancy of the new dwelling as per the temporary use agreement. Notice of the application has been circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. Sauble Bayfield Conservation Authority has been in pre-consultation with the landowner and the developer and have determined that the proposed construction is to be located outside of the regulated area. So ABCA does not oppose the approval of the requested temporary use amendment for permission of 2 dwellings. The North Middlesex Public Works Department notes in terms of servicing that the property is serviced, the existing house, is serviced to a municipal drinking water system, and that a new meter pit will be required at the property line for the new dwelling. In terms of road, there's an existing access from Fort Rose Road. And in terms of drainage, the rezoning application does not impact or require a drainage reapportionment. The chief building official has no objection to the proposal, and at the time of writing the subject report, no written submissions were received from members of the public. So it is recommended that the rezoning application be approved in principle, limited to first and second reading of the bylaw, and further that the owners enter into a temporary use agreement with the municipality to ensure the removal of the existing residence occurs, and further that the final reading be provided once the temporary use agreement is registered on title of the property. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. At this time, the applicant, your remarks on this?
Really nothing. I think Stephanie pretty much captured our wish there. I guess a couple questions. The temporary use agreement, is that something that I deal with through which department to get that in place if this is moved forward?
Stephanie, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. So through the mayor to the applicant, should council grant the application in principle, the temporary use agreement would be executed this evening, and the copy would be provided to yourself to review and sign.
Okay. Well, that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this time, any comments from the public? Nothing, Darcy? You don't? No. Okay, you're good with it? All right. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Keel, are you moving this? You are moving the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Nerda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
At this time, we have a delegation. We have Darcy Elliott and Tony Comisto is coming forward and to speak on our insurance. Give us the great news of how much it's gone down this year. Okay, no, sorry. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Worship. As many of you already know, or perhaps you don't, so I'm Darcy. I represent McLaughlin Insurance. So, and I am the broker of record for the municipal insurance program for the municipality of Middlesex. I'm responsible for the day-to-day changes, consulting, risk management questions that come about from that program, and it is underwritten and placed in conjunction with intact public entities and my peer, Mr. Tony Comisto. He has prepared a presentation for us this evening, kind of give us a high-level overview of what the insurance program looks like. Turn it over to you this time.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to come and address you today. I take great pride in being able to come and visit you, especially after an election. I know we're in June now, it's been quite a while. So I wanted to take this time to congratulate those returning members and seeing a few familiar faces up on council. So that's always a pleasure as well. As Darcy mentioned, my name is Tony Camiso. I've been with the company now for 15 years. My area encompasses 6 counties, starting here in Middlesex County, going over to Lambton County, and from there straight north to Huron and Perth counties, and then Bruce and Grey counties. This program, which Darcy has kind of alluded to, it's a program that's been tested for almost 90 years now. Intact Financial purchased the Frank Cowan Company in 2019, and Intact Insurance is the largest Canadian insurance company. And in summary, they purchased the largest municipal insurance company. So it's been a great merger. As an employee of Intact, I can tell you they're great to deal with during the transition. And for those of you who've, you know, been to the webinars and to the training and sessions that we had during COVID, you've noticed there's been quite a shift in our branding. Obviously, our name has changed. So there's a lot of new things going on. The presentation I presented, it's very short, it's very concise. I think for those of you who are new on council, I hope it's not too much of information overload. There's only a few policies on the program that pertain specifically for members of council. Like Darcy mentioned, this program it's actually 12 different policies that renew and expire every year on December 31st. So very complex, very comprehensive package that gets put together. So, okay, so now we can see the presentation. As Darcy mentioned, he works for HMS, he works for you. He does not work for me. Darcy works for you, so always remember that. On the third slide, I like to start with this slide. Just has a picture of a tornado kind of ripping through the prairies there, but it's something that I think every insurance company, whether they're big or small, is definitely paying more attention to, and that's just weather-related catastrophic losses. And here in Canada, you know, we just suffered the 3rd worst year ever in our history in 2022. And what was unique about 2022 was there wasn't just one event that caused a significant loss. It was really spread out through the country. And, you know, here in Ontario, we had that windstorm in May 2021 or 2022, sorry, during the May long weekend. We had 93 different municipalities file claims over that day. So that windstorm, it literally whipped through the most populated area in Canada, because it kind of came through here in Ontario, went up north, up to Ottawa, and then further east into Quebec. So very significant loss there. And wind damage, we had the hurricanes on the East Coast last year that was more significant losses. We had the storms in the West, so very spread out losses, all related to climate change and weather that really affected, you know, the insurer's performance and profitability for 2022. You know, and the other 2 years were the flooding in Alberta and the GTA. Those were kind of 2 significant events. And then in 2016, Fort McMurray was, you know, a whole municipality up in flames. And that was another, you know, another catastrophic year that really affected the results. So I wanted to bring that to council's attention just because that's what every insurance company is really paying attention to right now. And it's definitely on all of their radars. A lot of our risk management and things that we are gearing and trying to educate our clients about is weather-related losses and how to prepare for that. So you'll see more of that going forward. So this is the nitty-gritty now. This is, like I mentioned, there's about 5 different policies I want every counselor to be made aware of. And again, these are policies specifically designed to protect you as an individual counselor and, of course, the corporation being the municipality of North Middlesex. So the very first policy, just because in about 2 minutes, you're probably not going to remember anything I say. So this is by far the most important policy that you carry on your municipal insurance program. This is what's called your general liability policy. You have limits up to $20 million per claim with no aggregates. So that is our best selling feature. No other municipal insurer can do that. So this is, again, by far the most important policy. And the reason it's the most important policy is because it's the policy that municipalities trigger the most. Doesn't matter if you're a village or a county or a township or a town or a city. This is the policy where it gets used the most. This is the policy where if someone suffers an injury to their property or to themselves, and they decide to come after the municipality for negligence, allegations of negligence, this is the policy that is triggered, would respond to defend the individual counselor or the individual employee of the municipality or the corporation itself, should they be named in that lawsuit. Like I said, policy limit of $20 million with a $15,000 deductible per claim. And again, negligence. I put that there in the slide there. Allegations of negligence. This is the policy that's designed to protect you. So moving on to the non-owned automobile policy, it's a couple slides ahead. Thank you, by the way, for controlling the slideshow. That's wonderful. So this is, I like to include this policy because I think it's important for counselors to know that if you are renting, and this applies to staff as well, if you are renting a vehicle for municipal duties, always rent it in the municipality's name. This policy would respond to those short-term under 30-day rentals, so you don't have to buy that extra insurance. But the other reason why it's important is because if you are using your personal automobile for municipal business, this policy could be triggered after your personal automobile policy limits have been exhausted. So if you're in a significant accident, you would always report that claim to your personal insurer. If those policy limits that you carry on your personal insurance policy are exhausted, this policy could be triggered. Again, only while you're on municipal business, okay? The next policy, Mr. Mayor, would be the accident policy. Basically a mini life insurance policy. We have an accidental death and dismemberment policy payment there for $250,000. There's a whole slew of other coverages. If you were to physically hurt yourself, again, while representing the municipality, there's benefits applicable to you as a member of council. Coverage is only up to the age of 80. Nobody here looks close to that age, so I don't think we have to worry about that limitation. Or should we mention the quote? We can.
Yeah, I have to.
So the unique thing about this coverage, Mr. Mayor, is right now, this council only has coverage for while you're on municipal duty. We do have the option to offer what's called 24-hour coverage. So if a member of council was up on the roof doing a shingling repair and they fall and break their neck, they would then have access to this policy, even though they weren't on municipal time. That option is available. It would cost an additional $830 annually to add that coverage. I would say since COVID, majority of municipalities are shifting to 24-hour coverage. And unfortunately, I did pay that claim out last year when Mayor Grace passed up in Goderich. He drowned, that's right. And he wasn't up at his cottage for minutes. He was up there on his own time, personal time. So anyhow, so that's a policy available to council. The next two policies are basically legal reimbursement policies for legal fees, the conflict of interest policy. So this policy, if you as an individual counselor are named under the allegations under the Conflict of Interest Act, you're charged, there's a $100,000 limit for legal fees. You'll see on the right-hand side of that screen, there are certain conditions that need to be made, need to apply in order for that coverage to exist. Again, it's only reimbursing the legal fees. If there's actual charge and award against you, there's no coverage for that. And then the next slide is the legal expense. This applies to both council and employees, as well as volunteers of the municipality. But again, legal fees, if there's an actual charge against you as an individual, this is the policy that would respond to provide those legal fees reimbursement. There's an aggregate on this policy for $500,000. So that's the maximum amount that the policy would pay out in any given term. You'll see I included the exclusions on the right-hand side of that slide. So we're not going to pay for Highway Traffic Act violations. So if you're charged for speeding or blowing stop signs, there's no coverage for that. And of course, we have a separate policy for any charges under the Conflict of Interest Act. So that's why we excluded under this policy. The next slide, Mr. Mayor, is just a quick snapshot of our value-added services. So these are unique services to Intact public entities. These are services that you as an individual counselor, but also staff have access to 24/7. Our most used value-added service would be the contract review. So anytime you're entering into a contract with a third party, we always ask that you send those contracts to Darcy so we can review it, review the insurance clauses. Because if we can shift the liability away from the municipality and prevent a claim from even ever happening, that's your best defense. The less claims you have, the better your rates will be down the road. The Center of Excellence, so that's a web link to our website. There are countless checklists and articles and case studies if you want to educate yourself more on risk management. Our webinars and seminars. So again, if you attend any of the conferences, you'll see that we do training. The webinars, we have a cyber one coming up. I think it's the same day as the Warden's Banquet. So maybe you guys won't be able to attend that one. But we do webinars more frequently now. We find we get more people attending the webinars. So I don't think those are going away, even though COVID's over. Those will continue. And then the last point, day-to-day risk guidance. So you obviously, everyone knows Darcy. Darcy has my number, and we work together to do our best to try and service the municipality and answer all of their questions as quickly as we can. And that's part of the package. There's no additional fees or costs for any of those services. It's automatically included in your annual insurance. So we did that pretty quick. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try my best to answer.
Questions? Councillor Irwin.
Thank you for the presentation. And for you, Your Worship, I'd like to go back to slide 3 and climate change and environmental issues. So overall in the insurance industry, how much are premiums being raised because of climate concerns? What degree?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is a very difficult question to answer. I don't have a specific number. I can tell you it's the #1 thing we talk about in the office. And in terms of property rates, so your property policy is just one policy of a dozen. I would say majority, if not the entire increase to that particular line, would be attributed to the insurer's concerns with climate change coming forward.
Paul, thank you. Now, we were talking about risk mitigation earlier. To what extent can the municipality mitigate risk on climate to keep our premiums low? Because we're going to see increased environmental concerns in future.
Excellent questions, Your Worship, and through you. I love hearing these questions. That means you're engaged, you're paying attention. So last year we did what's called a climate resiliency grant. We'll be doing that again. If there's a particular project that North Middlesex is doing to help your residents prevent sewer backup claims or flooding claims, we need to know about it. You can apply for that grant. You can get some money directly back. Last year, we gave $10 million. Sorry, not Intact Public Entities. The Intact Foundation gave $1 million to 10 different municipalities throughout Canada. And we had over 200 applications, I believe, throughout Canada. So that's one direct way you can get premium dollars back. The second thing, if you're preventing claims and your claims loss ratio is staying consistent and it's not going up and down every year, you'll see stabilized rates just from that. Basically like a claims-free discount that will also be applied annually to your insurance.
Okay. Councillor Cornelison.
Always interesting to have you gentlemen come here. Insurance is my favorite topic. Okay. I want to refer back in a different angle than what Councillor Irwin discussed, and about the $2 billion loss in the last year, if you will. And you mentioned hurricanes, and typically they happen on the East Coast, Halifax, Nova Scotia, that way. They don't happen here. But the damages that occur there, is this a shared cost that's brought across all municipalities that you insure, so that we are also liable or held accountable for somewhat of the damages and the premiums and the losses that occur in Nova Scotia?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, another excellent question. Not directly, but as a pool, if you think of insurance as a giant pool, there is a factor that comes into play to climate change losses. So for the last 3 years, the insurance industry is playing catch up, trying to pay for all of these new billion-dollar-year losses that we've been having for over the last decade. So yes, there is a factor. I just don't know what the percentage is. But yes, let's say out of a 15% rate increase, I'd say majority of it is market driven, not your individual claims performance, but driven by the market. And what's driven by the market is what are the losses happening throughout Canada. And if we were having severe weather events throughout Canada, yes, Intact's a national insurer. So directly, it's not directly affecting your insurance, but indirectly through just average rate increases through the province, yes, there is definitely a percentage going towards paying for all the major losses. And that's just insurance in general.
Yes, I know my wife works for the business. We don't talk much about it. The other question I have for you, and going over your presentation, which I enjoyed and read thoroughly, is this specific for council insurance, or is this the municipality in general?
Through you again, Mr. Mayor, it's both.
Okay, then I have a follow-up question to that, because I'm not seeing anything here included for cyber insurance for the the coverage on cyber attacks. Is that, do we have that?
Mr. Elliott?
Yes, we do.
Where is it?
And we spend it. So the renewal package itself, the policy renews December 31st. So just given the timing of this year and trying to swap with Steve to get all the parties here together, renewal was dealt with at that time. In that package, there's a couple, the 5 policies that Tony has shared with us, as well as included in the property. There's also an auto policy that goes with that, as well as the cyber policy that's purchased by the municipality as well.
Okay, so we do have that coverage. Okay, thank you.
And for 2 years,
perhaps. I believe it was.
Yeah, maybe 3. Forgive me, but the last 3 are a little crazy always, but at least the last 2 in prosecution.
Okay, but I just didn't see it, so I wanted clarification. Thank you.
General, as opposed to being specific to this.
I like general. Thank you.
Good.
Councillor Irwin.
Now, later in your presentation, you talked about 24-hour coverage and the fee of $830. Is that per council or per council?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is the complete for the entire council.
Thank you.
Okay.
Annually,
yes.
Yeah.
Councillor Nerda.
I just have a question for that too. Is there a beneficial designation form that we must all sign, or how?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, there's not. Any payments would be automatically done to your state.
Okay, is there an option to leave a beneficial designation?
Through you again, Mr. Mayor, no, there's not.
Do you know why there isn't?
I don't know why.
Councillor Knellison.
Just to follow up Councillor Nerda's question there, is there an age limit on this benefit? Is there an age restriction on that benefit?
It is 80, Mr. Mayor, through you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Is there any other questions? Darcy, just on that cyber insurance, you can apply for it. That doesn't necessarily mean you are able to get it, correct?
Exactly, Mr. Mayor. This year, it was becoming increasingly difficult to get. At one point in time, not unlike, lines of coverage in our business, everybody thought they'd take a stab at it and underwrite it, right? And offered it. The product was offered in many forms and costing levels. So as the cyber world has evolved in the last couple of years, claims frequency severity went through the roof, right? So we had lots of people pull out. And an entity such as North Middlesex, right? Municipalities were becoming a real target with this cyber coverage. So it's very carefully underwritten. I'm hesitant to use the word painful, but it's a very thorough process. The renewal application itself, what our IT partners are doing for us, what protocols and safety items are in place, right? So it's more difficult to obtain. It's more difficult to underwrite. It costs more, but it is there. We've prepared it this year.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Any other questions at all? No, thank you very much. Oh, Councillor.
I'll ask one. I want to go back to the what do you define as council business? So is this council business? Here's an example. today the constituent had an issue with a water issue in terms of a drainage issue. I'm climbing down a very steep bank to the river and then back up. If I fall and die, is that council business?
Through you, Mr. Mayor? Yes.
Okay.
You were there on council business.
Don't let your wife know that you can get coverage. All right. Any other questions? Yeah. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much, gentlemen. As always, it's good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Our next item is 7.1 is the report from the planner on 91 West Park Drive. Stephanie.
Thank you. So the purpose and effect of the rezoning application is to rezone the lands from the future development zone to the residential density 2 exception zone in order to permit the establishment of 69 rental townhome units through a site plan control application, which is being worked on concurrently. As part of the site-specific zoning application, the applicant is seeking council's permission for the following zoning standards. So a maximum lot coverage of 42%, whereas 40% is the required standard. A minimum separation between driveways of 3 meters between only 2 units, whereas 9 meters is required. And a maximum rear yard encroachment for covered patios of 3 meters, whereas 1.8 meters is required. So as council will recall, the statutory public meeting for this file was held in November of 2022. And based on the public consultation process and the comments received from council, agencies, and staff, the site plan has been revised from its original submission. And the main revisions since the original submission include a Loops Road access, and I will share my screen with you so that you have that in front of you. All right, so the changes include a Loops Road formation. The previous plan had more dead ends. The number of units has reduced just by 1 from 70 units to 69 units. There has been a sidewalk that is added internally from Elliott Drive to West Park Drive. The rear yard amenity space has increased from 6 meters to 7 meters. There's a privacy fence added along all the property lines. Trees have been added to a majority of the residential units, and number of visitor parking spaces has increased from 15 to 23, and the stormwater management configuration has been altered. Policy. So generally, as mentioned, I will provide a summary in regards to the statutory public meeting. So in terms of the public comments received, staff received 2 written submissions as part of the circulation process. And we did receive oral comments as well. So in summary of the comments received, concerns were raised in regards to compatibility with the abutting agricultural use to the west of the lands, as well as the industrial lands on the south side of Elliott Drive. In response, the subject lands are located within the settlement area boundary and are not designated, and are designated residential within the North Middlesex official plan. As such, minimum distance separations between the new dwellings and abutting agricultural land are not applicable. However, agricultural properties in close proximity to the settlement area will still continue to be subject to MDS2 requirements. And in order to mitigate potential land use compatibility issues, it is recommended that the site plan agreement contain a warning clause to make future residents aware of potential odor, noise, dust as a result of nearby agricultural operations. And it's becoming to be a quite standard clause that is seen in both plans of subdivision and plan. In regards to the industrial lands, subsequent to the public meeting, the applicants have completed a land use compatibility study, which identified that the nearest business, being McGee Farm Services, is commercial in nature. And the study concluded that the proposed development is generally capable of being compatible with surrounding land uses from both a noise and an air quality perspective, and identifying the mitigation measures to offset noise and dust are continued to be ongoing. As mentioned, the site plan continues to be worked on concurrently with this application. And so it is recommended as part of the site plan agreement, again, that the agreement contain any direction on required mitigation measures to reduce potential land use compatibility conflicts. Additionally, I did mention, and I will note again, that there is a proposed 1.8 meter high privacy fence proposed to be located along all the edges of the property. Concerns were also received from the public in regards to the proposed density of the site and the type of proposed dwelling, being townhomes. And so in response, staff note that the provincial policy statement, county official plan, and the North Middlesex official plan permit residential growth in settlement areas, and a variety of housing options are encouraged to meet the needs of current and future demographics of the community. The location of the development abuts existing residential built-up area to the north, maintaining orderly and appropriate growth within the settlement area. The North Middlesex plan, official plan, does permit a maximum density of 40 units per hectare for medium density developments such as this. And the townhouse development is proposing 23 units per hectare, which maintains, again, that density standard within the North Middlesex official plan. Concerns were raised in regards to the capacity of the sanitary lagoons, and additionally, concerns were raised in regards to the setback from the Lawrence Drain. In response, at the November 9th, 2022 meeting, as council will recall, staff advised that based on available data at that time, that the Park Hill Sewage Lagoon did have enough wastewater treatment capacity to accommodate the development. But based on updated information received in February and April of this year, it appears that there is no longer adequate wastewater treatment capacity to accommodate this development within the current Park Hill Sewage Lagoon system. And as such, staff recommend that a holding provision be placed on the property as part of the rezoning application, preventing the townhomes from being constructed until adequate servicing does become available. And in regards to the Lawrence Drain, the applicant has provided the submission to meet the 50-meter setback from the top of bank. In terms of agency comments, there was not an additional circulation completed as part of this report. So no new additional agency comments to provide council with, but a summary of the 2022 comments have been included, within the planning report. The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and North Middlesex official plan, again, all generally encourage development within settlement areas on full municipal services. The subject lands are located within the settlement area of Park Hill, and as mentioned, will be subject to a holding provision requiring the development to be fully serviced with municipal infrastructure prior to building permits being issued. Staff have reviewed the site-specific zoning requests and are in favor and are in support of them, as they are considered to be minor in nature. So no concerns with that. And in addition to the site-specific requests received, staff, in addition to, request that a minimum distance between the townhome blocks of 3 meters be recognized, and these standards, I should mention, are just recognizing what's on the existing plan. Staff are not proposing them, it's just reflecting, so it further, reflects the plan in the zoning sense. The minimum number of visitor parking spaces would be 23, and a minimum landscape buffer of 1.8 meters. High board fence shall be located along all property lines. And again, all 3 of those are already within the plan. We'd just like to put it into the site specific so that it remains. Overall, staff are of the opinion that the rezoning application has the ability to be consistent with the policy documents, again, subject to the availability of servicing. So it is recommended that the application be granted. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Questions from council? Councilor Daigle.
I still have a big concern with the housing units coming right down to Elliott. We're saying that the noise and dust and that, they know they're there, they can be dealt with. The problem is when people are living in those homes, the person has to deal with it is the person across the road, the industry. And we're bringing the people too close to the industry as far as I can see. With the homes coming right down to the road like that. I think there should be a buffer there to some extent.
Okay. Thank you. Other Councilor Cornelison.
Thank you. Stephanie, the fence around the property, is there any specification in terms of what it would be constructed of?
So through the mayor to the councilor, it's 1.8 meters high and it's the board fence.
A board fence.
Other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody right now. I have a couple that I would like to ask. And first of all, so the fence has to meet the setback on the drains as well. It has to stay outside of that setback.
Through the mayor, I would think so, but I would have to confirm that. I'd like to get confirmation on that if I can, please. Okay.
Okay. The other one is they're asking for the driveways to 3 meters instead of 9, instead of 8. 9. Okay, sorry. Are they all like 3 meters apart, or they're going to put the laneways back to each other?
Yeah. So let me see if I can zoom in more on the plan for you. So the distance required in the zoning bylaw is a 9-meter distance between driveways on separate properties, I think is the intent of what the zoning bylaw was. The 3-meter distance is only applicable to units 5 and 6 right here. So this is the shortest distance between 2 driveways. The remainder of the driveways have a 5.5 meter setback between them. So the deficiency is 3 meters being the smallest, but the standard for the rest of the development is 5.5.
Okay, thank you. And you've answered my other question on the provision for the holding provision. That was the other one. Other questions from council? Councilor Daigle.
The fencing that's going around the property, you said was going to be a wood fence. Is there conditions in there who replaces this wood fence in 5 years? Because the wood we get nowadays doesn't last long in fences. Just take a drive down some of the streets in London where they've got wood fences and they're terrible a year.
So through the mayor to the councilor, this property is intended to remain under one single ownership. So the municipality would not be responsible for any maintenance of that. It would be the responsibility of the property owner to maintain.
Other questions? Councilor Irwin.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, I'm glad to hear fellow councilors talk about the fencing issue, because as soon as I heard that, I made a note, not noise abating. And I'm wondering if we have the ability to request noise abating fencing, especially given the industrial nature of the community. Of this part of the community, I meant to say. Yeah.
So through the mayor to the councilor, through the rezoning application, we are speaking in regards to land forms and uses. We did do a land use compatibility study. They didn't have any concerns with the noise or the dust from that perspective. Council if there is, I'd recommend we defer the application until we can speak to the applicant and then review those studies.
Councillor Irwin.
Sorry, I didn't gather that. When you said they, you meant the people, the consultants who did the study? They didn't have any issues?
Correct. Sorry. So through the mayor to the councillor, the noise engineers, the acoustic engineers provided a study, and their outcome of the land use compatibility between the proposed development and the commercial business across Elliott was that they're compatible in nature, and that there were no large concerns with noise or dust. As mentioned, the site plan process is still ongoing. It's not completed yet. So those details in regards to mitigation, things such as, triple pane windows, et cetera, are still being examined and are anticipated to be recognized within the site plan agreement itself.
Other questions? I mean, we're dealing on the zoning on this tonight. That is the issue that we're dealing with here tonight. I did have one other question. I think I mentioned it to you earlier in the week, and that is the pond was considerably bigger in their first application, and they only lost one unit. So how could the pond be made so much smaller?
So through the mayor to the mayor, the original configuration was addressed as a dry pond. This one's being labeled as a bioretention area, but from my understanding, again, the engineering is still ongoing, and the municipality would not finalize or approve the site plan application until we were satisfied that the stormwater, the sanitary, the water, everything is going to work for this development to function.
Fair enough. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, we have a recommendation in front of you. What is the wish of council?
I would move the recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Cornelison. Is there a seconder for that? No seconder? So, Councillor Keel.
Mayor Rupp, I'd just like some confirmation on this from Stephanie as well. This is all contingent on sufficient stormwater or wastewater compatibility?
That's correct. So through the mayor to the councillor, the rezoning application is essentially would be permitting the use of townhomes, and then the servicing components through the holding provision would not allow the development to proceed until adequate services become available.
Councillor Nerda.
Stephanie, this question's for you. So this is just to permit the 69 rental homes then to be built?
Through the mayor to the councillor, currently the property is zoned future development, which doesn't contemplate any built form. So the rezoning would allow the site-specific zoning for the townhome use themselves. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Keel. Second the motion. Okay. Is there more discussion on that? Councillor Daigle.
We're not locked into this plan though at this time.
So through the mayor to the councillor, that is correct. However, we are far along enough in the site plan process that it is anticipated that the zoning standards and the lot layout should generally remain the same. However, should the plan change substantially and require any other or further zoning deficiencies, then it would come before council again for consideration.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Irwin.
Yeah, I'm jumping a little ahead on the agenda here, Worship, because I'm trying to understand how the changes on the provincial policy statement in Bill 23 might impact us in the future. So once we approve the zoning, if we approve the zoning of this and refer along the site plan, but we don't have capacity yet with a new sewer treatment facility, can a developer compel us to do that?
Through the mayor to the councillor, sorry, compel, could you clarify?
They compel us to move ahead in in a much more expedient fashion than we normally would to put into sewer treatment because they have approval in place because of the changes coming down the road with the new provincial policy statement and Bill 23.
Through the mayor to the councillor, I would say certainly the more development applications we have before council, I think it demonstrates the pressing issue and need for upgrades to the wastewater system. I don't think there is the ability for a development to force that to occur. There's certainly a lot of other aspects in there that go beyond the development, but certainly there is a general demand for housing from the provincial level. And as mentioned, I'm sure council has witnessed that even from this year, right? The demand for the applications coming forward.
Councillor Nerda.
Stephanie, just to be very clear, so this is only to approve for townhouse development, correct? And not, because what I take issue with is how close some of these homes are to that property, that commercial property on Elliott. So if we approve this today, we're not approving that site, the site plan, correct?
So through the mayor to the councillor, site plan is a process that is designated to staff. However, the zoning application does review the setbacks, and that setback is meeting the zoning bylaw. So there's no, they could get a building permit for that today, even if it was one house, they would meet that.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Pinellas.
Just to expand on that, Councillor Nerda's comment, if council does not approve that based on the site plan as presented, they would have the right to take that to the land tribunal, would they not? Given that the zone does meet the setback.
Through the mayor, could you please repeat that?
They could appeal council decision if council were to deny approval of the site plan, given that it meets the current setbacks according to the planning and zoning requirements. They could take it to the land tribunal for appeal, could they not?
So through the mayor, the applicant has the ability, as does the members of the public who have written submissions, agencies, et cetera, to appeal within the 20-day appeal period after this decision is made.
Okay, anything new? Any new questions? No? And that was a new question. That's not what I was getting at. Just nothing new. We have a motion on the floor, accept the recommendation, and it is second. Any other discussion on it? In favor of that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? It is carried. 2 opposed. Thank you. Report from the manager of infrastructure and operations, Petty Street water main leak. Can I? No, sir. Not right now. No.
Okay, through the mayor. I am bringing a report to council tonight for your information about a significant water main leak that occurred within our water distribution system. In March 2023, we became aware of the significant leak in East Williams. And once we became aware of that, it was promptly located and repaired. Unfortunately, we estimate that an approximate 175,000 cubic meters of water was lost through this water main leak. And that value of water that we pay is approximately $91,000. We have, through this process of finding this leak, we've implemented some new processes to help us better proactively monitor potential water leaks within the water system. The leak, we became aware of it on Monday, March 24th. We noticed this in our invoices from the City of London for the water that we purchased from the primary water supply system. Just noticed a significant uptick in the volume on one of the meters that we read. We promptly notified the regional water supply as well as Aqua so they could check the meter to see if there was any issues with it, how it was reading. It was found to be working properly. So we had Aqua immediately investigate to find the source of the leak, which they did the next day on Tuesday, March 25th. And the leak was located within the 200 millimeter or 8-inch water main that runs along Petty Street, where it crosses under Bear Creek, approximately 175 meters northeast of Queen Street. Aqua then made arrangements with a third-party contractor to repair the water main, which was completed on March 27th. Just to go over some of the new processes that we are now doing to help us better monitor our purchased water usage. We've established a just pretty basic purchased water tracking Excel sheet, which we use to compare against previous months, just to look for trends and identify any anomalies that may indicate potential leaks. And then we are also now sharing this information with Aqua as those invoices come in, so they can just have a second set of eyes on that data. We've requested a detailed report from Aqua to outline the causes of the leak and any preventative measures that can be implemented to mitigate such occurrences in the future. And that is my report. I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Keogh.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. It's really not a question. It's just more of a comment I'd like to make that if any of the residents in North Middlesex actually see grass growing this time of year, perhaps maybe we would just like to make a call to Public Works or to Aqua themselves. That water main leak was kitty corner to my property, and I do know that I have certainly more water pressure than I used to have, but it was something that was deteriorating. And, in March, it's hard to tell, but with this significant loss or shortage of rain we're having, if there's anything that's growing, look for a water leak. And I'd just like to make people aware of that.
Thank you. Any other? Go ahead, Jaden.
Thank you. And through you, I just want to thank the councillor for those comments. We did prepare after this some information that we did share on our website, just reminding residents basically what Councillor Keogh was saying, to keep an eye for wet spots on their property or water flowing in ditches when it seems like there probably shouldn't be. Certainly, these are the most problematic areas where water mains cross under water courses or municipal drains, because it's going into the water course and we can't see that. But it's a great point. We do want to get that information out to the public and make sure everyone's being vigilant for these types of situations.
Thank you, Jaden. Councillor Daigle.
When the 91,000 or the leak was found, is this by a physical reading of a meter?
Yes, this meter is read monthly from the primary water supply system, and then we see that figure on the invoices we get from them.
Is there a possibility we read our house meters now with a machine that we could get these meters so that it's broadcast, so you get a report daily into for your spreadsheet without anybody having to go, because monthly we could be 30 days behind the leak. Whereas if we're getting it daily or weekly right off the meter, we could save $91,000 maybe. Just
yeah, certainly. It's a good thought for, especially for these larger meters. These are the meters that capture the flow right off the transmission water main that goes to London. There are, I guess, you do have to have communications equipment for that, for those type of meter readings. And typically what we do our drive arounds, and then you have to be within a certain proximity to pick it up with the radio equipment. There are opportunities for things like that we've talked about with our water meter supplier, but you'd have to sort of mount an antenna on some sort of tower, and that would help you cover a certain area. But for these particular meters, that could be something that we could look into, future communications.
Even if it was a weekly drive-by by our phone to get it, the information rather than monthly, it's just waiting 30 days to find out you got a leak like the issue.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions on this? No, we need a motion to accept the report. Councillor Irwin, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Aiden. Passing of accounts. Sorry.
To leave. And I do have one question, and it's to do with the last submission. We talked about an agreement being put on property to say that it's agricultural lands around it. And it's something I'd like to have looked into for any of our agricultural services, like all these surplus buildings. So if somebody from out of the area buys it, it's on title that there's agriculture going on. You can't say you didn't know because it's going to be there.
All right.
I was also wondering if Stephanie is going to be here for the county report with that new land use planning and whatnot, because I had some questions on that. I don't know if you can answer them.
Are you staying for that? Okay, she will stay. Okay, passing of accounts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report in front of you outlines the municipality's expenses for the period of May 12th to June 1st, totaling $1,079,001.82. Before opening the floor to questions, I did get one question in regards to the check made out to Advantage Data Collection for $9,450. This was for, if council remembers, when we were deliberating for the budget, Vance, the manager of Public Works, brought forward the retro reflectivity of all of our traffic signs. And we needed to get them assessed in order to determine whether or not we met the minimum maintenance standards. That is what this expense is. I now open the floor to questions.
Questions from council. Councilor Nelson.
Thank you. It's not a question, Mayor Rob, but more a comment. I think I preferred the other format for accounts payable better than this one. I know change is always difficult to accept, but this one I just don't like it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This report comes from our new accounting software. You will not see the previous report again. But there will be, once we have fully implemented the new accounting software, I will bring forward a report to council to propose a change in the way the information is presented to council.
Okay. Any other questions on accounts? Motion to accept the report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Hodgson, seconded by Councilor Nerda. All in favor? Carried. Okay, committee reports. Lake Huron Primary.
Mayor Rupp had a meeting last Thursday, I do believe. It was a short meeting, and as the information is available, I'll pass that on to all council members.
All right, thank you. ABCA.
Nothing substantial, just another CA update on the planning changes in natural heritage. One thing that was of interest to me, which I thought I'd share with the public, is that the Sauble Bayfield Conservation Foundation does have grants for students to attend specific programs with conservation and natural heritage studies.
Blue Water Recycling.
Just the information that was forwarded there regarding the meeting with the board of directors.
Any questions for Councilor Keogh on that? Seeing none. All right, economic development.
No news to report. Our next meeting is August 15th.
Okay. Local school advisory. Councilor Irwin.
Just an update, Your Worship, on behalf of the Deputy Mayor and myself. I have sent an email out to the principals of the 5 schools in our community, 4 elementary and 1 secondary, to ask for the names of their chairs of their school councils, we received 4 positive responses. 2 people who were on the committee previously, plus one of our Middlesex school board trustees, Arlene Morale, has also expressed interest in being on the committee. So it looks like we have moved positively towards committee membership. So the Deputy Mayor and myself would like to bring forward a report to council in future around next steps.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions for Councilor Irwin on that? Seeing none. Recreation Committee.
Just want to remind everybody that we're having the North Middlesex Days at the arena on Saturday. And that's where the public meeting for the Recreation Master Plan is going to be taking place. So hopefully you can be there to attend and have a look. And
What are the times on that?
11 to 3, I think it is.
11 to 3? Any questions on that? Policy Review Committee?
We have a meeting coming up in 2 weeks, just prior to our next council meeting. So if any department heads or anybody have policies they want brought forward, we'd like them by about the 14th so they can be put into the agenda.
Okay. Fire Committee.
Yes, we had a meeting recently on May 11th. The committee did recommend that the fire marquee make a presentation to all of council for consideration of their services. Also, Chief Van Hoover informed us that we will not be proceeding with Anthony Shore's agreement at this time, given that their chief has left and they're dealing with an acting chief, so won't be pursuing that any further until they have replaced the chief. Other things that happened is that we did have a discussion on the training facility in Meaford that is kind of innovative and creative, absolutely. And so Councilor Daigle, Mayor Robb, myself, and Chief Evan Hoover went there on Monday to look at the facility. It was interesting, very interesting. It seemed quite cost effective. And so there will be a report coming back from the chief on that. Well, and the chief, I wish he was here, but he's not. But he did have some dates available for training opportunities for council to participate. I think you all got an email on that, I believe. And being a member that has previously participated in that training, I strongly urge any of you who have an interest, especially you, Hodgins, to attend the training, because it could come in handy on the phone for you, you know. And that's about all there is. I don't think anything else, but does the member committee have anything they'd like to?
No, I don't think so. I just want to say that the chief did ask if he should stay for this meeting, and I told him that I didn't think it was necessary. Then, go ahead.
I just had a correction. The economic development meeting is actually June 15th.
Okay.
Thursday, the next one.
Okay, thank you.
The record.
Councilor Irwin, you had a question?
I'm curious, Your Worship, from a show of hands, who on council will be attending the training section of the invitation of the fire chief?
What? Oh, the training.
A show of hands, who would be attending? Yeah.
Oh, I'm hoping to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 5 of us. It's just.
Okay. All right, let's carry on. Correspondence. Town of Plimpton, Wyoming, Municipality of Tweed, Bell Hydro Infrastructure. Receive and file. Municipality of South Huron, Town of Fort Erie, Prince Edward County, United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, provincial policy statement changes. Receive and file. Township of Havelock, Belmont, and Bethune, call to action, review of Cannabis Act. Receive and file. Town of Lincoln, Municipal Heritage Register. Receive and file. And correspondence 11.1 and 11.2 are receive and file items. Any questions on any of those? Okay, we'll go to other and urgent business. And I believe, Brandon, you have a couple of reports.
Mayor Robb, members of council, these are just formalizing some agreements. The first agreement is to do with the food booth, which a report passed through council, I believe, about a month or so ago. That agreement has been formalized. So now it's just seeking council approval on that. It is with Jennifer Burns. And then the second agreement is just basically a renewal with the Parkhill Fall Fair in order for them to operate the next 3 years.
Okay, and I think they're coming up in bylaw.
Yeah.
For bylaw. Is there any question on those? Councilor Cornell.
Brandon, is there a minimum amount of time or days that this food booth has to be open?
Yes, so in discussions, we have in the agreement time from 6 to 8 p.m. Monday to Friday. And then we have also specified weekends where there's baseball tournaments. So working with minor baseball, working with the North Middlesex Slow Pitch Classic, as well as any other events that they want to work with those groups. The other option is if they do not want to be open for those, to have minor baseball run the booths, which they seem to be.
I'm sorry, didn't hear the last part.
So if they are not unable to be open for like a minor baseball tournament, having minor baseball be able to use that booth with them. And work
Excellent,
together.
excellent. That's my follow-up. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, Jaden, I think you have some updates for us, some dates for Main Street.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Providing an update to council on the Park Hill Main Street construction project. I will kind of give a block, well, not block by block, but stage by stage update on how things are progressing. We're seeing some good progress. And so I'll start with stage 2, which is Elgin Field to Broadway and Ellen, which is where the car wash is. You may have seen that there are curbs installed there. And going off of the contractor's most recent schedule, the plan is to have the base layer of asphalt paved on Monday, June 12th. So this coming Monday, we'll see some asphalt go down. And then following that, topsoil and sod restoration will be happening on the east side of the road, where the new sidewalk has been constructed. There's still a few gaps in that sidewalk that have to get filled in. And the sidewalk installation on the west side is happening at a later date in the project, just because we're still working through some technical challenges, working around the existing trees and some utilities there that weren't addressed in the design. The next stage, which we call stage 1B, is moving north from stage 2. So Broadway and Ellen Street to Emily Street and William Street East. That's where the Foodland is. So within this stage of the project, construction crews are currently working on rebuilding the road, which includes removing and replacing the granular road base to bring that to current design standards, and installing new subdrains under the road, under the curbs. And then they're preparing for new concrete curbs, sidewalks, and eventually asphalt. So within stage 1B, curbs are currently scheduled for June 21st and 22nd, and sidewalks to follow June 26th to the 30th. And paving for that phase, that is the phase through downtown, is currently scheduled for the week of July 4th. Moving north then to the final stage in Park Hill Main Street, stage 1A, work will just continue to progress from south to north on Park Hill Main Street. So once the contractor's crews are completed preparing the road at Foodland, they'll move into that last area from Foodland up to Park Hill Drive, preparing the road from mid-June to the end of June. Curbs and sidewalks should be installed by mid-July, and paving for that phase stage would be by the end of July. So we currently, based on the contractor schedule, we're anticipating Park Hill Main Street being paved by the end of July. So that's the base course, the binder course, and the surface course asphalt paving will be done this year as well. And then there is some remaining work within stage 3, which is the work on Elliott Street from Elgin Field to West Park Drive. So Main Street's really the focus right now. We want to get that done, get that paved and reopened for traffic and the businesses and the public. But once we get Park Hill Main Street ready, construction is going to be moving over to Elliott and West Park, where they just have to finish the final water tie-in, about 2 to 3 weeks of work, and then restoring the asphalt and boulevards in that area. So that final stage on stage 3 will be completed by mid-September. So that is where we are currently with construction.
Councilor Nerda.
Jaden, I don't know if it's possible, but is there any way, I know it logically makes sense to start at one end and work your way that way. Is there any way that the stage 1B could be done first? Businesses are really struggling. There's no sidewalks. I know there's no sidewalks really anywhere, but is it possible to do the north from Broadway to the Foodland first? Or is that just not possible?
The reason it's not possible, well, the paving work can't be done until the curb work gets done. And it's really just an order of operations. First, they have to do the granular road base, and that's with the contractors, roadworks crew, and then it's subcontractors come in to do the concrete work and a different subcontractor to do the paving work. So 1B is they are getting there. They're almost like they are progressing well with that granular road work and curbs to follow. But with that order of operations, the stage 2 is really ready for asphalt. It's just awaiting that. So we'll get 1B done as soon as we can following stage 2.
Thank you, Jaden.
So paving stage 2 is not slowing down this next stage, correct? I mean, that's still going on. It's just you're able to get the paving done at the other end first.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. All right, Councillor Canellis.
Jaden, is it your project's on budget? Is it close to being on budget?
So the project still is within the budget, but there have been a number of some additional scope that was added. County added some scope to reconstruct the road. There was some significant unknown infrastructure that was encountered. So currently we're looking at budget very closely, and we'll be bringing a report back to council at the next meeting with more information about budget.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Keogh.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Jaden, the final coat is on the county's dime, is that correct? The final coat of asphalt?
That's correct. The road costs are county's cost.
Will we see that this year, the final coat on that?
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay, thanks for that, Jaden, because I know everybody's wanting to know dates and, you know, and when we're going to see some pavement. It's nice. It'll be nice to see a paving crew in here on Monday, first of the week. That would be nice. Councillor Nerda.
Jaden, is there any way you can forward that timeline to council?
Yes, I can provide that right after the meeting.
That way you at least have something to tell people. Absolutely. Okay. Any other questions for that? If not, we'll go to the deferred items. And I think, are you going to speak on 13.3? Is that what I heard, Jaden?
Yeah, yes, just a brief update. I wanted to let council know that we have been in communication back and forth with Enbridge for that gas main extension on Grand Bend Road between Corbett and Moray. So Enbridge has been evaluating what the gas usage would be and assessing the feasibility of that project. It looks positive. Just recently, they have sent out some letters to property owners that gas could be coming their way. And it looks like there's a lot of uptake on that, and the residents are very keen to get gas installed and get off their propane tank system. So Enbridge seems to be moving ahead with that. I'll have more details once their plans are finalized, but it's looking positive.
Excellent. Any questions on that? It's good to hear. And 13.6, Stella, you're going to speak to that one?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So 13.6 is the Ontario Trillium Foundation grant that was discussed at the last meeting with the Friends of Carnegie Library. I have received all of their information in order to proceed with the grant application. I've received information through Councillor Irwin from Jerry Barb for the same application, washroom renovation at Ye Olde Town Hall. I have a phone call scheduled tomorrow with a grant support specialist. I'm not sure what their title is at Trillium Foundation. The only worry that I have is there is a limit of $150,000 for the grant. And what I'm not sure, Mr. Barb did indicate that The 150,000 would be for both projects combined. And when I met with Ruth in regards to Carnegie, she was worried about that, and she wanted to confirm that the 150,000 was per project and not combined. So I need tomorrow to confirm with Ontario Trillium Foundation if it is for both or each. If it is for each, then I will need to get back to Ruth to see if they want to drop the lift and just apply for the washroom renovations, how to proceed from there.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Stella? Councilor Daigle?
Could it also be confirmed that they can apply again next year or whatever, however it works for the same type of grant?
Absolutely, I will confirm
So
that.
if they don't do the lift, then they can go in the next year with it.
Yeah.
Do you have a question, Councilor Irwin?
No, Your Worship. I had some other business, but we moved on.
Okay, from other business?
Yes.
Or go ahead.
So, all right, I had two issues I just wanted to raise with council and begin a process. One of them is I've been getting some feedback on Annie Ada Shipley Street, and it's becoming very busy in Elsa Craig as people are skipping through it and avoiding Main Street. What would be the process to begin to investigate a three-way stop at Annie Ada Shipley and Craig Street? Beginning the process to look at a three-way stop and slow down the traffic, some traffic calming on that street.
Aiden, you want to speak to that?
Yes. So typically for additions of stop signs, Ontario Traffic Manual recommends that it is supported through data and getting some traffic counts. So I can work with our Public Works manager and Public Works team to get some data collection out there and see whether that's warranted through the Ontario Traffic Manual.
And I can just state that the periods that people are most concerned about are in the morning, obviously commuters and children and buses, and in the evening when people return from work.
Okay, thank you. And you had something else?
I had one other item. During the budget approval process earlier this year, I did raise the question that could we investigate a additional waste transfer depot at Elsa Craig, like Park Hill? And I'm just wondering if we had a chance, and obviously not, but if we are going to have the chance to begin to consider or look at that issue.
We can certainly try.
We haven't looked at it yet. It hasn't been looked at yet.
Additional transfer station in Elsa Craig. Okay, I've made note of it.
Okay. All right. Communications, including the County Council Planning Reform Bill 97 and the new provincial planning statement. Councilor Knellison, you have some questions on that?
I do. And my main focus, of course, is on the rural farm, additional homes on rural farms. Would these lots be created and therefore be severed from the farm property?
So through the mayor to the councillor, the current proposed policies, again, not in effect right now, would permit up to 3 severances for lot creation in the agricultural area, as well as up to 3 residential units per property in the agricultural area.
So then theoretically, there could be more, the family could expand additional homes on their home farm without getting a severance.
Yes.
Okay, but they could also sever it off and sell a piece of property to a potential client who wants to live in a rural area.
That's correct, from my understanding.
Okay. The question I have for you, and that it doesn't really address it here, but there's been some discussion on it. There are a number of parcels throughout our municipality that are not viable for agriculture, as argued by a number of landowners. It may not be an additional unit on that particular farm. It may just be a single home there, can those properties be utilized or incorporated into residential development?
So through the mayor to the councillor, I have not seen that policy being proposed at this time. In regards to, I think the language, I think we have some of the same outstanding questions you have in regards to the criteria that's proposed for lot creation generally. The first one being agriculture as the principal use of the land. Certainly, I have also heard the discussion of what does that really mean, and we're hoping to receive further guidance from the province on how to implement that for that criteria.
Right. So like, for example, if there's, I can think of two properties that come here before council that may be 1 or 2 hectares in size that the landowner argues is not viable for agricultural purposes. Could there then be an application to create 3 lots on that particular piece of property or that particular parcel of land?
So through the mayor, again, it would be up to the interpretation of what the criteria is. Number 1 being agriculture is the principal use of the land. So I think if you had a 2-acre parcel and to sever it up into 3 residential lots with no agricultural use, I don't think it would qualify based off of the proposed criteria.
I didn't understand that, because how can a residential lot be incorporated into agricultural use? I don't quite follow that. Because the balance of the land, if there's 40 hectares there and 38 are agriculturally viable, but 2 are not, of that 48 hectare parcel, could that 2 hectare parcel be divided into 3 residential building lots is my question.
So through the mayor, I believe so. Sorry, I misinterpreted. I thought you were speaking to if there was an existing 2-acre parcel of land that may not be viable for agriculture.
Okay.
So the only location criteria again proposed at this time is they have to be beside each other and near lower agricultural priority areas. So that's a good example if it's near a natural heritage feature, I think, based on the criteria we have today.
Okay, just for clarification, do I understand you correctly that these homes have to be beside each other? So let's again, I'm gonna, so there's a farm family living in the home farm, in the house, and they want to construct a home for their home, for their son or their daughter, or maybe even sell a parcel to a cousin. But it's on the other corner of the farm. That would not go, it'd have to be adjacent to the existing dwelling?
So through the mayor to the councillor, it would need to be, again, I'm just reviewing the criteria here that's proposed today for the lot creation. From my understanding, we would want to ensure that we are trying to maintain or cluster those lots together.
Okay, so the urbanization of farmland.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Stephanie, I just have one question. I scanned through this a couple of times and it didn't really stick out to me. In the event that it does become accepted and a person would like to purchase a lot off a farm, will that resident be put through the same guidelines that a farmer wanting to increase the size of his barn and has to plan it in accordance to minimum distance setback?
So through the mayor, yes, I believe I have not seen any changes to the minimum distance requirements at this point in time. So one of the impacts that staff are anticipating, and I think many of the comments that have come to light through the agricultural community, is in fact making challenges for existing livestock operations to have the ability to expand and meet the setbacks is certainly something that comes to mind.
Thank you.
I think any other questions for Stephanie on that? Thank you, Stephanie, for staying and sharing that with us. Everybody's got the council highlights as well. You've seen them. Any questions? All right, we'll carry on then. Reading of the bylaws.
Thank you. Today we have bylaws 55 to 61 of 2023 be read first and second time.
First and second. Councillor Keogh, Councillor Daigle, all in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Third and final. Deputy Mayor Hodgins, Councillor Canellison. Sorry, Councillor Nerdin seconded. All in favor? Carried. Yeah, don't all speak at once, everyone. All right, we need a motion to go into closed. Councillor Nerda, Councillor Keogh, all in favor? And it is for